If I had to pick one quintessential Christmas story amongst the litany of tremendous options, I'd probably have to go with Charles Dickens' 1843 novella, A Christmas Carol, telling the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, an aging, cold-hearted minister who loathes Christmas, and his journey of self-discovery after being visited by the ghosts of his past, present, and future. It's a timeless story that has remained an iconic piece of Christmas media for 2 centuries. As you might imagine, with a story this beloved and long-lasting, it's been adapted into countless other forms of media, from a near endless amount of theatre renditions to live action, animated, and even Muppet starring films, and perhaps most interestingly, into comic books. While straightforward adaptations of Dickens' novel had been published as comics as early as 1948, with Marvel Comics actually releasing their own version in 1978, arguably the most famous and popular comic to bring this story to life is Lee Bermejo's 2011 graphic novel, Batman Noel. This story reimagined the Dickens classic through the lens of the beloved Batman mythos, adapting various stories and characters from the Dark Knight's 80-year history and telling a story that serves as both a timeless celebration of the Caped Crusader and an excellent reimagining of one of the great modern literary texts. To me, Batman Noel is arguably the quintessential Christmas comic book, and as such, in this video, I want to explain the story of just how it came to be, how Lee Bermejo adapted the iconic work of Charles Dickens, and how the story modernised and uses the framework of the classic Christmas Carol story to craft one of the most ingenious and fascinating Batman stories of a generation. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. The genius of Batman Noel is a direct result of its creator, Lee Bermejo, and in order to explain what makes this book so great, I think it's first important to provide a brief overview of Bermejo's history, and how he came to work on the story of Noel. You see, Bermejo's gateway into the comic book industry came in the late 1990s, where he began working for Jim Lee's Wildstorm Productions as an intern. Inspired by artists like Frank Miller, Howard Chaykin, and Will C. Portacio, Bermejo had dreams of making it in the industry as an artist, teaching himself to illustrate and studying with many of the tremendous artists working for Wildstorm at this time, before receiving his first credit as an artist in the form of Gen 13 issue 43 from September 1999. From here, Bermejo would begin to work primarily at DC Comics, teaming up with Joe Kelly and Doug Mahnke to tell the now iconic Superman story, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice and the American Way, told in Action Comics issue 775 from March of 2001. The success of this story alongside his work on Hellblazer would lead to Bermejo forming a partnership with writer Brian Azzarello, with the pair producing 2 standalone graphic novels centered around iconic DC Comics villains, 2005's Luthor, the Man of Steel, and 2008's Joker. Now, Joker is particularly noteworthy, as it served as the foundational piece for Bermejo's unique take on the Dark Knight lore, providing the foundation for what stories like Batman Noel would be built off. Set outside of DC's main continuity, Joker is told from the perspective of Johnny Frost, a low-level street thug who finds himself working for the Clown Prince of Crime, showing the life of one of comics' greatest antagonists from the perspective of a somewhat ordinary person. Upon its release, Joker was met with huge acclaim and praise, leading to Bermejo being keen to explore more corners of the Batman universe. Soon after, he got the idea for what would evolve into Batman Noel. As Bermejo explained in an interview with DC Comics,
I initially wanted to do something with A Christmas Carol after being contacted by a European publisher to adapt a classic work of literature. It was either this or Heart of Darkness. Only problem was, I didn't want to do a strict adaptation. At the same time, I was also toying with a Batman story that I'd had in mind for some time, and there were a few elements that just were not gelling. At a certain point, I started seeing a way to combine the 2 projects, and things started to come together. It became a nice little vehicle to tell a more innocent Batman story while still being able to comment on the character, his place in his own history, and his place in the literary world.
Combining his desire to adapt the seminal Charles Dickens story with his growing fascination with the Caped Crusader, Bermejo got to work bringing this story to life solo, working not only as the artist for this new graphic novel, but also choosing for the first time in his career to write it as well. And while not a direct adaptation of A Christmas Carol, Bermejo sought to infuse the spirit and meaning of the classic story into a brand new Batman adventure, exploring how his encounters with his past, present and future would impact the Dark Knight story and change him for the better, much in the same way Ebenezer Scrooge does in A Christmas Carol. Beremjo discusses how he approached writing the story in an interview with IGN, where he states,
"The holiday nature of it is just sort of secondary, just because the book takes place at that time of year. But I thought that there was an interesting parallel between the story I wanted to tell and Dickens. I think it's important to make it clear that this isn't an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. This has got its own story that follows the same structural beats as A Christmas Carol. Your narrator is telling you his version of A Christmas Carol, but what you're seeing is very much a Batman story, about a father who is desperate and decides to take a stab at the criminal profession. Batman winds up using him as bait to catch the Joker."
Whilst clearly telling its own original story, Beremjo used the motifs and archetypes found in Dickens' work to inform the main characters of Batman Noel, with not only Bruce Wayne himself taking on the role of Scrooge, but Catwoman, Superman and the Joker serving as the ghosts of Christmas past, present and future. And much like he and Azzarello did with Joker, Batman Noel would be again told from the perspective of an ordinary on-the-ground person. This time the book's narrator would be Bob Cratchit, a small-time criminal who finds himself working for the Joker in order to care for his young son during the holidays. And with this, Beremjo's ambitious Christmas story took shape, and Noel was eventually released in November 2011, as readers anxiously anticipated a Batman story that would prove to be truly like no other. Batman Noel opens with Bob Cratchit, a struggling father who has recently begun working for the Joker, as he picks up a package full of money from a trash can and immediately sees the bat signal looming over him, as Batman arrives in hot pursuit, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, chasing Cratchit down and demanding the location of the Joker. Startled, Bob tells him he doesn't know where the villain is, scared for his life, before Batman shockingly lets him go, placing a tracker onto Bob, believing that he will lead him to the Clown Prince of Crime. From here, we see Bob return home, where we learn that he is a single father, attempting to care for his disabled son, Tim. We see that the two live in poverty, their apartment is run down, and Bob is struggling to pay for his son's medical bills. As the father and son duo attempt to build a makeshift Christmas tree, we cut to Batman returning to Wayne Manor and conversing with Alfred. Bruce tells Alfred of his plan to use Bob as bait to ambush the Joker, before turning Bob into the GCPD. As Bruce begins to cough, showing signs of catching a cold, Alfred remarks that a similar plan previously led to the death of Robin, as we learn that in the years since the Boy Wonder's death, the Dark Knight has grown colder and more aggressive. After this conversation with Alfred, Batman resumes his patrol on Christmas Eve, where he comes face to face with the ghost of Christmas past, in the form of Catwoman. Believing she has information regarding the Joker's whereabouts, Catwoman admits that she lied, and only told him that she did in order to try and reconnect with Batman, longing for the days when he would chase her across rooftops throughout the night. Bluntly, Bruce responds by telling her that he doesn't play games anymore, and when attempting to apprehend Catwoman, Bruce falls between buildings and hits the ground. As Batman lies half conscious in an alleyway, he's then confronted by the ghost of Christmas Present, as a glowing aura engulfs the entire comic, and Superman stands above him. Checking on Bruce with his X-ray vision, Superman tells him that he is suffering from pneumonia and offers to fly him home. As the pair fly above the Gotham streets, we see various citizens preparing for Christmas, including Bob and his son, as well as Commissioner Gordon. Superman drops Batman off at the Batmobile, pleading with Bruce as a friend to take the night off and recuperate, before flying off into the night. Seemingly ignoring this advice, Batman attempts to re-enter the Batmobile, before the car suddenly explodes and knocks the Dark Knight out. And when he eventually comes to, he finds the ghost of Christmas future standing over him in the form of the Joker. While Batman struggles to regain consciousness, Joker's henchmen drag Batman to a nearby graveyard, where his body is tossed into an open grave. Whilst buried, Batman begins to have a realization. He sees visions of a potential future, one where Gotham has descended into chaos, with the streets filled with thugs dressed like him and the Joker, whilst his close allies like Commissioner Gordon are arrested for aiding Batman in his vigilantism. It's here that Bruce finally admits to himself that in the years since Robin's death, he has become cruel and lost sight of what he is supposed to be. A hero. Realizing this, Batman drags himself out of the grave and ambushes the Joker, who had broken into Bob's house and was holding Tim hostage. Crashing through the window, Batman is able to subdue the Joker and his thugs, though in the ensuing chaos, Bob is able to grab the Joker's gun and point it at the villain's head. Watching this, Batman pleads with Bob not to kill the Joker, telling him that despite his crimes, Bob is still a good person, and urges him to show Tim the kind of man that he really is. Moved by this, Bob drops drops the weapon and instead rushes to hug his son, as the GCPD arrive to apprehend the Joker and his men. From here, we see Batman return to the cave the next morning, falling asleep in front of the Batcomputer as Alfred covers him with a blanket. Later that day, we see Bob and Tim wake up on Christmas morning, hearing a knock on their apartment door as Wayne Enterprise employees arrive with a Christmas tree, as well as telling Bob that Bruce Wayne himself wants to offer him a job. The comic's final page sees Tim playing in the street, wearing a makeshift cape on his back, as we learn that the entire comic has actually been narrated by Bob Cratchit himself, telling the story of Batman's journey of self-discovery to his young son. As the story concludes, Bob turns to Tim and asks what he thinks the moral of it was, as we're left with the heartfelt reminder that no matter what life may bring, people can always change. To me, Batman Noel is one of the great modern Batman stories, as well as arguably the greatest Christmas-themed comic book of all time. In one short standalone graphic novel, Lee Beremjo is able to capture the essential spirit of the Dark Knight's character, and create this unique lore and mythos for his particular take on the timeless hero, that feels both incredibly fresh and also familiar. Beremjo's Batman comes with so much history and intrigue, and as we see his journey of self-discovery progress throughout the story, we're in the process reminded of why we all fell in love with the Caped Crusader to begin with. This comic is not only a brilliant tribute to the Batman character though, it's also a fascinating reinvention of A Christmas Carol, taking the core ideas and key character archetypes from Dickens' classic story and rebuilding them from the ground up to fit characters we've come to expect in a Batman comic book. The use of Catwoman, Superman and the Joker as Bruce's ghosts, as well as Robin serving as a Jacob Marley type character, is near perfect. However, for me, it's the book's use of Bob and Tim Cratchit and their relationship with Batman where I think this story truly excels. The frequent contrasting between Bob and Tim's conditions against Bruce Wayne's, as well as the strong father-son dynamic the pair share throughout their struggles, serves to be the true reminder to Batman of what really matters, as his re-emergence from the grave and heroic rescue of Bob and Tim symbolises his return to heroism and to once again be the Batman he was before Robin's death. Much like he tells Bob at the book's climax, Batman himself chooses to be the person his son sees him as, honouring the legacy of his fallen partner by dragging himself from his lowest point and choosing to become the truest version of the Caped Crusader once again. As the comic's opening monologue suggests, this is a story all about change, and how despite what hardships may come, we're never too far gone to make a change for the better. And this is demonstrated perfectly by both Batman and Bob Cratchit's journeys to once again be the best versions of themselves. Honestly, this is a genuinely tremendous comic book, and Beremjo's heartfelt message and incredible artwork, combined with Todd Klein's lettering and Barbara Ciardo's colouring, perfectly brings to life this tale of grief, tragedy, and above all else, hope. For a story as dark and sombre as it can be, Batman Noel is ultimately a tale of heroic triumph, as we see the Dark Knight rise above the darkness and once again be the shining light in the sky that inspires others to change for the better, as the world in turn inspires him to believe in himself and be the hero that we and the whole world deserves. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this video and you want some more, there should be some others on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so over at patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. You can also follow me on Twitter just at Owen Likes Comics. But that's all for this video though. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you have a happy holidays. But until next time, take care and keep reading.